So, about me. My name is András. I run a design studio. We're based in Budapest. I'm the CEO and founder, and I run kind of an 11-person team, and we're mostly focusing on digital product design. That means that we came from the UI and UX world, and we build interfaces and experiences for digital platforms. With that said, I just wanted to show you just a few projects that we've worked on along the ways. And some of them are corporate websites for different companies. Some of them are applications or SaaS products. And we kind of, I shouldn't say we've built a portfolio around banking, but now there's a lot of financial products that we work on. And partly for the reason of banks and financial institutions not liking black boxes so much. So I think banks are in the sector of not wanting as much AI as everybody else does. So I think that's kind of an interesting take on it. So my background is mainly in visual design, or in the visual field. I was working at different agencies along the years. And Stereogram as a company, or as a design as a service company, is kind of 5 years young. So yeah, as I said, we're based in Budapest, and I grew up in Transylvania, not too far away from this place. And a lot of my childhood memories involve being in the mountains. And coming here to Denver is very interesting because I didn't know this, so I looked this up. My talk is a lot less data-driven than these guys' talk, so I have 4 numbers in here. So the highest peak in Colorado with Mount Elbert, oh, sorry, I kind of ruined the joke there. The highest peak is Mount Elbert. So I did a comparison. If you closely look at the numbers, Hungary is the same, right? You just shift those around and it's almost the same. As a comparison, basically in Hungary we have Kékestető, and you have Mount Elbert, which is, yeah, a bit higher. So our country is mostly flat. I think I can say that. Okay, about this talk, I just wanted to give you a quick context on what we are going to talk about and what I wanted to exclude. I purposefully want to exclude the meta level, so we're not going to talk about any philosophy on AI and the societal transformation or how it affects the whole of the tech world. I will try to mostly focus on how it affects digital product design and our domain and the practical implications it has inside of this realm, okay? Are you guys still with me? Everyone okay? Great. So there's a designer called Irene Pereira, and she wrote this book called Universal Principles of UX. And in this book, in the beginning chapters, there's this main theme about architecture and physical construction and how it relates to the digital development world. And I really liked her analogy, and I'm going to use that analogy and stick to it to show you a few things on how I view our domain through this lens, through this comparing it to architecture lens. So, what is the design process, or how do you approach it? I think a lot of people are familiar with the double diamond process. It's a quite established model or a framework. The first phase includes a discovery phase. The second phase includes the delivery phase. So first you ask the right questions, and then you try to answer those questions as best as you can, and you try not to jump into execution or conclusions. But this is all really just a very sophisticated way to say you start off from chaos and somehow you'll get to order. And hopefully you can do that within the timeline that you set for yourself and the client. So if we shift the double diamond around and try to form it around this analogy that I'm trying to kind of showcase here, let's see how this applies. So you have the first steps. You have user research, market analysis, problem definition, and then UI/UX creation, and then you have the final designs. And there's a clear distinction there where you give those things over to the engineers. So in this case, computer engineers would be real engineers in the architecture sense. So if we compare it, there's different words for it, but they kind of serve the same purpose. Or I know that I'm overly simplifying these, but I'm doing it on a purpose. So if you look at the generalized output, in the first stage, you really, you gather the insights, you create the requirements, then you start defining those on a higher fidelity Then you have specifications, and once you have those, you hand them off. So we're missing the last bit of the table, so let me put it there. That would be the implementation, right? So the first two stages are part of the double diamond, and the third stage is the build itself. And the reason I want to show you this is so that we can really analyze how this is shifting because of AI, okay? So the first layer, what we are working on basically, is really just representation. What we're doing is not the real product, is not the end thing that the users are going to use or the building that you're going to step into. It's an imagination, it's a vision of a possible future. But it contains a lot of detail, and those details serve as a foundation layer that will be used by the engineering team or the building team. So the second one would be implementation. And the reason I'm drawing this distinction is so that I can also show you how these things are now reshaping and how it affects this. Actually, the thing is that Istvan totally kind of ruined this for me because I wanted to say that development is now free, but you can now know that it's actually not free, but I'm still going to say it. So if we stick to my fairly graphic analogy, bricklaying or pouring concrete has, with the help of AI, it could be Cursor, it could be V0, it could be Lovable, it could be Bolt. You have all these different companies building incredible software. It became virtually free. I mean, for a consumer, aside the subscription fee that you're paying, generating code is now the easiest thing you can do. You don't even have to know the syntax, or you don't even have to know what language you want code in. You just put in a prompt and get something. So it's like, if this would have happened in the real world, what would you do with it? Nobody knows. But what's happening is, with the use of AI and with every stakeholder wanting AI, they want to move from concept and they want to dive deep straight into implementation. And they kind of want to skip the steps in between. And I don't know what happens when you do that. We'll try to explore it. So let's go back to this analogy again. The first segment, or the promise of design, is that we're going to bring you a clear enough vision and a validated enough vision before you build it. Because building or the realization phase is, as we know, expensive. Or we thought it was so far. But now things are really moving around, and building has now become cheaper than ever. Maybe not free, but it's a lot cheaper. So there's a last thing that I wanted to talk about conceptually, which I think design serves quite well, or at least we're trying to focus on it a lot, which is the fourth stage, or the last step of the delivery process, is all around creating a number of artifacts or documentation around every decision that was made within the organization. And it is stored in the design file. It may be also stored in Confluence or other places, but as we currently do it, it's stored in Figma. It's stored in Figma prototypes, and it's stored in user flows. And every specification, user behavior or front-end behavior that should be happening on the screens is stored there. So whenever you're in the implementation phase, people and developers are going to ask questions, and they're going to go to someone or go to a document and ask that question, and hopefully there will be a place where they can look for the truth, because truth can live in multiple areas, and if it lives in multiple areas, it's a lot harder to find it. So if there's a singular place for it, and design being that place, I think that's a good deal, right? Okay. Let's see how this whole thing changes the process. So if we simplify the double diamond, the thing that's happening is that timelines are shrinking. And they're not only shrinking, but as with the previous Hamilton analogy, if you jump into execution or jump into implementation, you can kind of skip the second one and go straight into this bigger diamond, which is the third leg of this double diamond. So now it's triple diamond. There's all these weird names for these. So you can basically vibe code yourself along the way and generate multiple versions and test them and vibe code on, and you're going to get to a place and you're going to call it a day. Like, okay, this is working. This is the final one. I can ditch all the others. And you're like, yeah, software is ready. Like, let's deploy it. Okay. Maybe it can happen in a few instances, but obviously in a larger context for bigger firms, for bigger corporations, maybe less so. So if you're like this at this point, this was way not as trivial like this for me. So this whole exploration that I'm trying to do on this talk was kind of months of thinking and months of gathering data, but not as precise data as these guys did. So let's see how this affects just on a list-like form the process. So in a manual non-AI version, you may have done this. So wanted to research, do the wireframes, do user testing validation, then you want to incorporate the brand layer so that everyone is happy and it meets their expectations, and do the dev handoff and kind of go on in your life. But now with AI-driven needs, as we've seen, this whole thing shrinks very much. So there's scoping, and then you kind of jump into vibe design or vibe coding. And as Barb said, there is big need for cleaning up AI slop. So the tolerance level for AI slop, I think, is mitigated, or the risk that it brings is mitigated by people who are doing code reviews and who are doing cleanup. So the fourth point is actually very important, but we're not the ones doing it. So we're still very much on the design side. Then you can do deployment. So if we needed kind of a model to evaluate how we can jump into things, whether to do it with AI or not AI, let's see how it works. So on the x-axis, you have the AI usage. On the y-axis, you have sophistication, which is also a proxy for overall complexity, costs, or quality. So in simpler words, the bigger and more complex you are, I think the less you can use AI. So if we use a rectangle as a size comparison, I'm just going to draw a few boxes here. So in smaller projects, you could either do it manually or do it partly AI. With bigger ones, maybe in a later phase production, you'd use less AI. But if you're in a later phase and only doing it for validation and ideation purposes, you could do with more AI. And if you're kind of here in early phase, you can do a lot more. And it could also work for smaller projects. So yeah, this is kind of a complex matrix that Gablet put together. And I'm trying to do my best here to explain the main takeaways from it. Okay, let's talk about some AI tools for design. There are a lot of ones, and I'm sure that you're familiar with many of them. I'm just going to cherry pick a few and talk about them. So there's this tool called Reloom. I'm going to show you a demo. It's great for creating information architecture and creating wireframes, mainly for corporate websites. New tools are emerging every week. There's Figma Make now, and also they've kind of opened or created an MCP server for it. So you can now interact with Figma and Cursor and kind of extract Figma information out of it and can build or prepare things for them later on being built in Cursor. So there's a lot shorter communication chain for Figma. There's also Builder.io, which kind of does the same, and it's built mainly for this sole purpose. And there's Claude. I use Claude a lot, and I know it's not a design tool, but it can also be used as a design tool. So let's just look at Reloom. So I gave it a prompt. I gave it a prompt to create a website for me for an artsy cafe meetup space, and it does the job. It can also transform the info architecture into wireframes, and they're pretty basic. I mean, maybe we would get away with this in a few instances or in a few cases where clients are tolerant enough, but obviously this needs some work. But it can get you from a draft version to a good enough version very quickly. And I think that's kind of the main thing about all these products, is that starting from scratch is hard. You want something fast so you can kind of iterate on it. And this tool is good for that. And using Claude as a design thing, I just prompted away a little experimental project for myself. I call it the Experimental Life Navigator. This would be your normal experience with Claude. So on the left-hand side, you're in the chat. On the right-hand side, there's the generated artifact. And the artifact can also be published. So the thing that it built was this little thing. I'm just going to restart the video just very quickly. No, I cannot do that. Okay, I'm just going to wait for it. If I had to design this myself, it maybe would have taken me a few days, but just a few prompts and you get to a fairly okay survey framework. And maybe it's not good for larger, more scale-oriented purposes, but it's good for ideation. So let's look at a few more examples. In this case, this was a real client project. I think I can say the name, but maybe Barb will kind of wave at me for doing so. So this was for Pro Cards. It's a sports and trading cards collection app, and the initial draft was a Claude output, and we've relied on that output quite a lot. So we've taken the idea for how the collection should be organized and took it into like manual Figma designs, and then moved along with those and handed those off to the developers. So these are just a few examples on how you could use different tools or different generative tools to go from nothing to good enough. And with good enough, you can still work your way up to production level. Yeah. So how is this affecting us? Barb said that there's less need for design. I hope there still be some, but it's really happening. So if you're a designer, I think you can do two things. Either you stay on the craft side, and then you're still called a digital product designer or UI UX designer, or you can shift to the dark side and become a front-end engineer, or a design engineer in this sense, because you have a taste for visuals, you have a taste for layout and structure, and you look at front-end problems in a different way, and now you're on the dark side. So if you're in the middle, and if you want to kind of stay in this and hopefully stay in this as a senior member of this domain, maybe you're going to be called a context engineer. That's the latest name for it, or at least the name we have for it now in the industry. And if you move to another kind of meta level, we could also call it an expert consultant, who is just I think we've heard AI whisperer here and between the seats. So yeah, if you're an AI whisperer and you have domain knowledge in different areas, you can easily become an expert consultant, also maybe coming from a design position. So a few takeaways. Okay, AI's impact on digital product design. Definitely, I think AI increases velocity. So the pace in which you move and the pace in which you deliver stuff is going to be a lot speedier. MVPs will become a commodity, as, I don't know, WordPress websites became a commodity because it's very easy to do. Now MVPs will kind of get to that stage where it's very easy to do one. If you're not familiar with the term, it's a minimum viable product that you can kind of put in front of customers and ask for money. And also, non-designers get a lot more hands-on, and this also applies for stakeholders. So if you're a product manager, project manager even, and you want to take a stab at different problems, you can just prompt yourself away. You're really a prompt away from getting to a result or getting to a type of artifact that could be a next step forward in the process. So the fourth one I would say is that everyone becomes a bit of a generalist, because also with AI, you're now using ChatGPT for search. You're not even using Google. You just type it in and get the answer from the LLM and not wait for the Google one. Although Google now has its Gemini answer built into the search engine, so it kind of works the same way. But this way, I think the line will be a lot more blurred than it was until now. Okay, I think there's still a few things that cannot necessarily be outsourced, and this is maybe more on the philosophical side, which I said I won't talk about, but I won't talk about it too much. I think there are two things you can't outsource, one of them being intent. So the direction you take, whether it's a product, whether it's an experimental project that you do for yourself, whether it's anything, you will get output from anywhere, but intent is not something that you can outsource. If you've ever tried briefing someone to do something and you've seen them fuck up in various ways, you can see how hard it is to outsource intent. And I think it's the same thing with AI. And the other thing is emotion. I think digital products have their own emotional design layer to it. If you manage to build a sophisticated system that kind of reacts and builds upon your behavior, I think there's a lot of things that you can do as a human that you cannot do with only generative AI models. So that was it. Thank you.